We then need to calculate our activity rates. So if you look at customer orders, we can see the total cost was $320,000. There was 1,000 orders, therefore the activity rate is $320 per order. Where did this $320,000 come from? You have to go back a couple slides. And this is after our first stage allocation. We realized that $320,000 needs to be assigned to customer orders. When you then divide that by the 1,000 customer orders that were there, you end up with $320 per order. Step 4 is assigning overhead costs to cost objects. This is our second stage of allocation. In the first stage allocation, we come up with the percentages that are going to be assigned, and in the second stage, we actually assign the overhead costs to cost objects. We can do this by product, we can do it by customer. It depends upon what our needs are. Here we're breaking up the cost between two different products. We have a product called Standard Sanctions and a product called Custom Compass Housings. When you take the customer orders, if the activity rate that we calculated before was 320 and there was 600 customer orders related to Standard Sanctions, then the activity-based costing cost is going to be $192,000. That's the activity rate times the activity. For the overhead costs that we're going to assign to Custom Compass Housings, we're using the same activity rate for customer orders, but there was only 400 customer orders. Multiply the 400 times the 320 and you get the 128. When you look at each of the cost pools, the customer orders, the design changes, the order size, you multiply the rate times the activity, you get the total cost associated with this product. For Compass Housings is $427,500. For Standard Sanctions, it's $524,500. $524,500. You could also assign cost by customer. So if we're looking at our customer called the Windward Yacht Company, they placed 3 orders multiplied by the $320 activity rate, and the cost for customer orders related to this customer is $960. There was one product design or one product design change that was required. Multiply that by the 630 to get the 630. They ordered 177 units. The activity rate per unit was $19, and the amount of money that was spent on customer relations is $1470 per customer. Add those all together, and our total costs associated with the Windward Yacht Company is $6,423. What does this all mean? Well, we're going to have to put together some management reports to use this information. Here we can see our product margins. When we look at Standard Sanctions and we look at Custom Compass Housing separately, we know what the sales were. We can track our direct materials and direct labor pretty easily. We can track our shipping pretty easily. And then we get broken down into our overhead costs. And this is the activity-based costing that allows us to look at overhead cost per product. When you compare your sales to your total cost, you can see that our product margin is $906,250. For Custom Compass Housing, we can track our sales pretty easily. We can track our direct materials, direct labor, and shipping very easily. And then we use ABC costing to break out the overhead costs related to this product. Add up the total cost and you see that we have a loss on our Custom Compass Housings. We can then use this material and we can see that the product design on the Custom Compass Housings cost us $252,000. Perhaps that is what caused us to have a loss. Management will then use this information to make those decisions. When you compare activity-based costing to traditional costing systems, remember, these two systems are going to be used side by side. ABC is not a replacement for traditional costing systems. So when we look at the traditional costing system, you're going to look at same sales, same direct materials, same direct labor, but the manufacturing overhead is going to be assigned either using process costing or job order costing. And you can see that the product margin here was $615,000. That's a big difference from the $906,000 that we have in activity-based costing. Also, for the custom compass housing, it looks like we're making a profit of $258,000. That's a huge difference compared to the $49,000 loss that we have under ABC. Remember, the big difference here is that ABC excludes some traditional manufacturing costs and includes some traditional non-manufacturing costs. It's really an apples to oranges comparison here. So we have to know what we're looking for from a management standpoint. Remember, ABC is used for internal reporting purposes only. It is not used for external reporting. We're going to use one of the traditional costing systems, one of the absorption costing systems, if we're going to be doing external reporting. It's okay that these numbers are different because we're going to be looking at them in different ways. That concludes our talk about activity-based costing. I encourage you to go over the videos a few times, look at the different categories that we're looking at, and good luck.